Hi, this is Andy Neal, and this is a motion quick tip. This is a question I've gotten a couple of times on the forum. How do you rotate the particles in a particle emitter? And it's not as easy as you might think, and I'll explain why not as we work through making a particle system. We're going to start by creating a particle, so I'm going to just click here to activate my circle shape tool, and then click and drag in the canvas, and I'm going to hold down the shift key to make sure that to constrain the shape so that it's a perfect circle. And I'm going to make it relatively small, just like that. Go into the inspector with the circle selected and adjust the feathering till we get a nice soft circle. And then hit E on the keyboard to make them into particles. And if I hit play at this point, you'll see we now have a particle emitter that is spitting particles in 360 degrees from a single point. This is a standard default particle system. Stop the playback for a moment and go back to the very first frame, because what we want to do is I want to create a sphere of dots, sort of like an atom or a globe of lights. And the way I need to do that is I need to create a sphere shape instead of a point shape. So go up to shape and hit the drop down. But if you notice, there is no sphere available to me in this drop down, and that's because I have to make the emitter 3D first. So click the 3D button and then go to the shape drop down, and there at the bottom you'll see the sphere. Go ahead and select that, and now the particles are being created all within the size of a sphere. And under arrangement, let's switch to random fill, and we'll leave the radius at 200 for right now. But scroll down and we're going to adjust this. First of all, I don't want the particles moving around at all, so I want to change the speed from 100 to 0. Now the particles are being added and they're disappearing, but they're not moving at all in space. Also, I don't want any particles to disappear, so I need to increase the life of the particles to at least the length of this project, which is 10 seconds. So if I just click in the life value and change to 10, now no particles will disappear. And finally, I don't really want particles to be born either, so I'm going to turn the birth rate to 0. But with a birth rate at 0, no particles are being created at all. So to get my particles, I'm just going to increase the initial number of particles. So crank that up to about, I don't know, 200 or so. And now I have just particles sitting in one place. Now this is still a 2D particle system. Even though the particles here are 3D, the particle system is inside a 2D group. So for this to be a truly 3D particle system, we need to add a camera. Click on the new camera button, and when you get this box, select switch to 3D. Okay, now if we rotate the camera around, you'll see we definitely have a 3D looking particle system. Okay. I'm going to just reset the camera view. Okay, so let's select the emitter again, go back to the emitter tab and scroll down towards the bottom. These little particles are actually they're kind of fat like cotton, and not exactly what I had in mind. So I'm going to just adjust the scale, and you'll see that this scale is actually only affecting the particles and not the emitter itself. Okay. There we go, that's a little bit nicer. If you don't like the arrangement of particles that you have here, you can add more or less, take away some. You can also click the random seed generate button to create new combinations. I kind of like this one's fairly round. Okay, so how do we rotate this? If you go to the properties tab and you twirl down the rotation, and then you click and drag inside the Y rotation, you see that the particles are moving just perfectly like that. So that seems like the way that you would want to do that. Let's try that then. Let's hit the record keyframes button. Set a keyframe at the beginning by holding down the option key and clicking on the animation menu. Then move forward in the timeline and scrub to, I don't know, 160 or so to set another keyframe. Now, turn off your record keyframes and play. Nothing happens, even though it's definitely spinning. The Y rotation is definitely spinning. Why is this not working? So what's going on? Well, this rotation parameter only rotates the position of the emitter. It doesn't actually rotate the particles around. I'm going to reset the rotation here, and then I'm going to add a spin move. Now the spin, because it has affect subobjects selected, and let's change the axis to Y. If I crank up the spin rate and then play it, you'll see what I'm actually doing is spinning the particles, but they're only spinning around themselves. They're not spinning around the center of the emitter. So in both cases, neither the spin behavior nor animating the rotation property will give me this animation, which is what I'm looking for. So how do you do it? This is how. We need to create, first and foremost, a null object. Now a null object can be any layer and it can be anything. It just has to be a layer that's not visible in the project, because we're going to use it to help us make the spin, but we don't actually want to see it. Now in this particular case, you have a ready-made null object in the original circle that you used to create our particle emitter. The null object has to be at the same exact position in 3D space as the emitter that we're going to rotate. So if you select it, you'll notice that the position here is identical. If I select the emitter and the circle, the position doesn't change. So this circle is right in dead center in the middle of this emitter. So that is going to be our null object. Then with the emitter selected, go to Add Behavior, Simulations, Orbit Around. The orbit around behavior will orbit the entire emitter around a specific object. And with the Affect Subobjects button checked, that means all the particles in the emitter will also orbit around the same object. So grab the circle layer and drop it into the object well. For this to work, you need to have at least 2 axes selected. With X and Y, let's hit play, you'll see that the particles are all spinning this direction. X and Z will spin the particles this direction. Y and Z spins the particles this direction. Okay, so I think I like X and Z, and you can also change the direction, clockwise and counterclockwise. When you don't have any other thing as reference, it's kind of hard to see the difference, but yes, one's going one direction, the other is going the other direction. Cranking up the strength causes the particles to spin more quickly, and a lower number causes them to spin more slowly. And that is how you spin a particle system. This is Andy Neal, and this has been a Motion Quick Tip.